the skill level under pressure.
Spain, I love you, but that was bad.
Can't just defend Spain. Hello and welcome. You've joined me in the East Midlands in England, and I am here to watch what is statistically the greatest rugby team that the sport has ever seen, England's Red Roses. And I am here to answer 3 questions. Firstly, I want to find out what it's like going to a women's rugby match. I've never been to one before. I'm also looking forward to seeing my first ever Spanish rugby team as England are facing Spain in this game. And most of all, I want to answer the question, are the Red Roses genuinely that good? Behind me are queuing for something. I don't know what they're queuing for. Someone said it's face paint. It can't be face paint. It can't just be face paint. So straight away I can tell you that it's a very different crowd to what I'm used to at men's matches. As you would expect, there's obviously a lot more women, it being women's rugby, but it's also quite a lot younger. And by the way, if you're wondering, Hugh, why aren't you wearing a rugby top? Au contraire, I am. Palois, aka Section Palois, aka Po to you and me. I'm considering myself the one and only owner of a Po hoodie in the whole of the United Kingdom. Prove me wrong. On the subject of there being loads of kids in the ground, it speaks to the accessibility of women's rugby. So the tickets for this game were 15 quid each. Compared to men's rugby prices, that's incredibly low. If you look at World Cup prices, when they initially went on sale, you could get a ticket to a double header, so 2 matches in a row, a World Cup match for 25 quid. That's so cheap, it's almost rude not to go. Now there's a flip side to that, and that is it financially sustainable? We know that rugby has sustainability problems, not just in women's rugby, but in men's rugby as well. But in women's rugby, you're in the position where often test matches aren't even breaking even, let alone club games making any money. To learn more about the business of Women's Rugby Union, I spoke to City AM journalist Matt Hardy.
With women's rugby, a lot of CEOs, a lot of club owners will say we're in growth mode, which is brilliant. Which basically means we're probably losing money, but it's worth it for the end result. But at some point, that's going to have to start paying for itself. Otherwise, clubs will have a men's team and a women's team that are both losing money all the time, and then ticket prices shoot up, treble to cover it all.
So it's a gamble, and we won't really know whether that gamble pays off for several years yet. Against Spain today is England's first warm-up for their home World Cup later this year. In terms of the choice of opponents, England-Spain is quite a bit of a mismatch. England are ranked number 1 in the world, obviously. Spain are ranked 13th. In terms of ranking points, there are 34 points separating the two sides today. So just for context, that is the same as the difference between England's men and, are you ready? Sweden. Now Spain are a very credible rugby team. They have dominated Rugby Europe for years and years at this point. Of course, on the channel we've made loads and loads of content about Spanish rugby already. You can check out my bespoke podcast deep diving all things Spanish rugby in the pop-out banner in the top corner. But don't click on it yet, watch this video first. But even with Spain being a great rugby team in their own right, I think everyone's expecting a very lopsided scoreline today. To make matters worse, Spain are just coming off a 2-test tour to Japan where they lost both games. They played their last game in Japan last weekend, and they have flown direct to the UK to play the Red Roses. My goodness.
Carl from Rugby TTL, probably as some might recognise, the previous guest of Hugh's many podcasts that he's got running. We brought Izzy along today to present some stuff, some content.
Get involved.
She's also royalty from the football side.
Yeah, I've been working with Ground Madrid TV, but excited to worked a lot in football, but rugby as well, the sport I love, and really excited to see the game today.
So how many women's rugby matches have you been to then?
I've not rugby, like 15s, not that many, but I've been working a lot with rugby 7s in Spain. Seeing the growth of that sport has been really exciting, really cool, especially the Spanish side. It's grown so much in Spain, and it's been, really exciting, but looking forward to seeing some 15s for a change.
Is it divided loyalties here today?
Yeah, I've covered my bets basically, mate. The same as the end of the Euros final, to be fair. But Spain are heavily rotated, 9 different changes, a few players out with injury, a few players, obviously, as you said, come off the back of quite a lengthy trip to Japan, properly tested against their group rivals. But they're out here, and obviously the Utrecht Shield's at risk today as well, so there's a chance that Spain could steal it off England, which obviously Dave would quite like to hear. I think it's fairly safe for England today, but it'd be great to see the Spanish grit that we all know and love, and they definitely, when they get a chance, Cloudy opinion and that, will get round the wings and will cause a bit of fun.
Rugby history / first outfits on Twitter. Spanish women's rugby, if you have not seen my incredible, I say incredible, but the women's Spanish team liked it. Basically, the women's Spanish team started off against the grain, not particularly supported by the national union. They entered the Six Nations. They entered in 2000, left in 2006, but before that, Spain had actually beaten every single member of Europe. So they'd beaten England, they'd beaten France, they'd beaten Scotland, they'd beaten Wales, and even after they'd left the Six Nations, they'd still beaten Wales, Italy, France, like they'd beaten everyone.
Years ago when Italy were brought into the Women's Six Nations at the expense of Spain. Granted, Italy have been really good since, fine, they've earned their spot, but you feel like maybe it should have been at the time just the best 6 women's teams in Europe. And I know they like the synergy and it works, but maybe that's not always the way.
About that claim that the Red Roses have to being the greatest team that rugby union has ever seen. They are getting on for 1 defeat in their last 60 test matches. Unfortunately, that 1 defeat that they did have was the World Cup final. Have you ever heard of a more English sporting result? Hey, so normally in these vlogs, I would normally give my thoughts on the match during the game. I would fire up my camera and record my thoughts in that moment. But because there were that many young kids sat around me, I didn't feel comfortable waving a camera around, so I'm back in the studio to give you my thoughts now. So having now watched the Red Roses in person, I feel like I can give a bit more of an explanation as to why I think they are definitely in the conversation for the best rugby team in the world. At no point when you are watching the Red Roses do you feel like you are watching a group of 15 individuals, or even a team that has 5 or 6 star players and the rest are just support acts. When you watch them, you feel like not only are you watching 15 players of the same level, but also 15 players of the same mind. No one ever does anything alone in that Red Roses team. No matter what the situation, everybody always has support, and that support always knows what's about to happen and what to do next. To learn more about what makes the Red Roses special, I spoke to current Springbok women head coach, Swayster Brain.
Firstly, you look at complete athletes, in every position. It's just not, and they well-conditioned, strong athletes with a high skill level, and they can do it. And even if you come hard at them or you're hard off the line, they've got the ability sort of to soak the pressure. You can see rugby is in their veins and in their body for a long time.
Now, of course, it doesn't harm that against most opposition, they've got superior athletes 1 to 15. But it's not just athleticism, it's skill level as well. When I say they win every collision, I mean they win every collision, sometimes gaining multiple meters in one contact. Yes, it's power, yes, it's brute force, but it's also technique going into contact. It's also footwork in front of contact. These are skills that some men's international teams, Wales, don't have.
Okay, so I can compare it with golf. It's like scratch handicaps playing against 10 handicapper or 12 handicapper. What is the difference? Is the skill level under pressure, and then their fitness level and their understanding of the game is fantastic to watch.
Now you can sit there and go on about how a female athlete could never be as out and out fast or as out and out strong as a male athlete. But rugby is not an individual game. Rugby is the ultimate team sport. And I am seriously struggling to think of a team that's got a collective level of understanding of each other and the game beyond that of the Red Roses. Honestly, I think it's only Toulouse that I can think of who are comparable in terms of the telepathic nature of their play. Having said that, I've just remembered that during the Six Nations, England's Natasha Hunt had a speed of pass that was, on average, just as fast as all of the men's passes. And not only that, the women's fly halves were kicking the ball, on average, further than the men. Now, of course, there's plenty of context to the length of a kick a number 10 might choose to do, but numbers is the numbers, the women kicked it further. Anyway, if you've made it this far into the video, you're probably enjoying it, so why not hit that subscribe button, perhaps leave a comment down below, share a link with a friend. It really helps the channel to grow. Anyway, let's get back to the story. But even though they are the best women's rugby team in the world, that doesn't mean that they're flawless. Rather than blindly heap praise on them, which would be easy to do, let's try and critique them a little bit as well. In this match, I felt that Spain's kicking from hand was superior to the Red Roses. The Spanish players just seemed more comfortable putting the ball on the toe, finding space in the backfield, varying up their attack. They just seemed more comfortable doing that. Now, you could say that if you're the Red Roses and you can score from literally anywhere on the pitch, you don't really need to develop a kicking strategy. But still, it's a fundamental part of rugby, and I think there are other teams that do it better. And then there's their defence out wide. It wasn't really exposed in this game, but in their most recent matches against the likes of France, Canada and New Zealand, I have noticed that England's wing defence has been found wanting. Look, England's wingers are brilliant players, the likes of Abby Dow, Jess Breach, Ellie Kildunn, hello? These players try scoring, we're talking Will Jordan level numbers. But that's with the ball. Without the ball, sometimes they can be found out. Particularly up against other elite level wingers like France and New Zealand have. They do make mistakes, whether that's poor tackling, poor defensive decision making, or just not making a decision in defence at all. Too often I'm seeing England wingers being bypassed in defence, and that's something they need to fix up. And finally, let's talk about the Red Roses' discipline. They won this match against Spain 97 points to 7, and still they managed to pick up a red card. Not just anyone, Marley Packett, their captain, got sent off for targeting the lower limb at a ruck. It's just completely needless. What was she thinking? She doesn't need to do that. Call it reckless, call it lazy, call it hubris, call it what you want. It's a trend now with England. Going back over the last couple of years, it feels like they've picked up yellow and red cards in games more often than not. And we're not talking technical infringements here. We're talking acts of foul play. When you're a team that dominant, you don't need to be doing these things. Let's not forget what happened in that one match they lost, the World Cup final. They got a red card. By the time the World Cup final is played this year, it will be right in the midst of autumn in the UK, which means the weather is going to be starting to turn. So if I'm Canada or New Zealand playing against the Red Roses in that game, my strategy is this. Let's drag them into a kicking battle. Let's find space in their back three. We know that's not their preferred way of playing the game. Let's come up with set plays off scrums and lineouts to isolate their wingers in defence. Make them make decisions, make them make one-on-one tackles. We know we can get some change out of them there. And let's try and wind up their biggest ball carrying forwards, because we know that they love to pick up a card. But even if you execute all of these things perfectly and everything falls in your lap, you're still relying on the Red Roses having an off day. Even with 14 players, even letting in a few tries, they're probably going to score more than you, they're probably still going to overpower you in the set piece, and they're probably going to be clinical with the chances that they get.
I love you, but that was bad. England, honestly, like the kicking game from England was really, really poor. I don't really understand why Emma Singh was on the pitch but not goal kicking. But I also feel like it was potentially a thought of Zoe Harrison's maybe going to be the main goal kicker, obviously with Emma Singh and Ellie Kildunn. Ellie Kildunn is always going to win out. Emma Singh, personally, in my opinion, should be playing at fullback in these games so that Ellie Kildunn could be on the wing, because when it comes to the semi-finals and the finals, England are really going to miss out on that goal-kicking aspect.
Is it true that you have a rugby podcast?
I do have a rugby podcast. I have two, in fact. So you can either check out Women's Rugby Treehouse, or you can check out the Rugby History Project, depending which one you fancy. Women's Rugby Treehouse is free for everyone. Rugby History Project, you can either check out on Substack, or if you feel fancy and you want to check out in audio format rather than written format, you can pay £4 a month to do so.
So I came here to answer the question, are the Red Roses really the best rugby team in the world? The answer is 97 points to 7. Yes. They're just so far ahead of every other women's rugby team. So far at the top. There is no higher level that they can play at. So I've never seen a team, look, there's things that you can say like, okay, maybe they're not as fast as male players, or they're not as out and out strong as male players, but there's things that they do as a team. I don't know another team that looks so organised in every situation on a rugby pitch. Whether it's fielding kicks, whether it's line breaks, whether it's phase play. They just all know what they're doing. They all make amazingly good decisions, and they all have the skill set to execute whatever it is that they want to execute. Does that mean that they'll win the World Cup though? Well, they should. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever known a rugby team be under more pressure than the Red Roses are now. John Mitchell, their head coach, did a really weird interview, which was published in the Telegraph the other day, where he spoke about how this Red Roses team won't be defined by whether or not they actually lift a trophy at the end of the tournament. I can tell you they absolutely will, especially having messed it up last time out. The only game that they've lost in the last 8 years or however long it is a World Cup final. If they manage to mess up 2 in a row, especially with one of them being at home, the final will be played at Twickenham, that is a massive failure. And John Mitchell giving that interview to me speaks to the pressure they're under. It doesn't help that the Lionesses have just won the second Euros in football in a row as well. So there's this real wave of expectation and excitement around women's sport in England. The Lionesses having just lifted the Euro title, do you think that adds pressure to the Red Roses?
I think it does add pressure. Obviously, we'd like that to also be brought home, or obviously this tournament is taking place on home soil, so for the cup to stay here. But I think it's just kind of taking it step by step. The football has seen such a growth in women's football, and it's been really exciting to see women's rugby as well grow. There are so many fans here today, especially so many young girls who have played the sport and kind of looking up to these incredible players. So that is pressure, but I know we're hoping for silverware, hoping for that trophy, but just got to wait and see.
Speaking of which, it doesn't feel like it's just the Red Roses which are under pressure this Women's World Cup, but women's rugby in general. Rightly or wrongly, women's rugby is now going to be judged as a professional sport. Now, England, Red Roses are professional. Lots of other teams in this World Cup are not professional. But the narrative has already started to change in terms of teams being judged differently, judged more harshly. It's not just pure goodwill anymore. It's now we expect the product on the pitch to be of a certain level. And the Red Roses are absolutely at the forefront of that. And if they don't win this World Cup, with all of the investment and backing they've had relative to everybody else, I worry a little bit about what that might mean for women's rugby in the UK, specifically being UK centric. Because if they don't turn all of that backing, all of that support into silverware, then the tide could turn and the opinions could change.
And I hope after what should be hopefully an amazing World Cup, I've got no doubt it will be, that maybe there's the confidence there from the chiefs who run the sport to kind of go, actually, this is the way we want to do this. And maybe it's not always following the men's structure, because the men's structure hasn't always worked. So why not find a path that suits the growth of the game?
So I hope you found this video thought-provoking. If you did, please leave those thoughts in the comments section down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.